This is a PCG-850VS, a Sharp pocket computer, and it's quite a nice thing to use. Now I've got another one which I've taken apart because this one, the display wasn't working. So when I bought it fairly cheaply. This display, most of the connections between the display and the main board here weren't working. So I decided, because it's a heat seal connector, never actually managed to fix one of those before, I decided to take off the heat seal connector. That's now missing, and I've cleaned up the connections and the connections on the LCD. This is just a power supply cable because I didn't want to run it off a battery. I wanted to be able to run the board out of the case, and you can't do that because of the way that the batteries are mounted. So how to fix it? Well, all I need to do really is get the connections from the LCD around onto the PCB. The PCB, you could, if you wanted to, solder to it. There's, I think, something like 80 odd connections on there, so it's a lot of soldering, and they're 0.5mm pitch, so good luck with that. They just need to be attached to the LCD. Now the LCD is a bit of a problem because the contacts are actually on the glass there, and you can't solder to that. So I've made up a flexi PCB which has got the same pitch and number of connections as the LCD connections there. There's a bit of the old heat seal left over there. So the idea is to attach that to this side, fold this in half, and then the other end will attach to the LCD. So I'm hoping alignment isn't going to be too much of a problem, because if I align one end and the other end, the rest of them should take care of themselves. And because this is rectangular, I'm hoping, as long as I line it up straight on the PCB, that it will attach and align itself with the LCD. That's the idea anyway. So the remaining problem is, how do you attach the flexi to the connections on the LCD and the PCB? Now I suppose I could actually solder that on there, but that's a lot of connections and so on. So it turns out you can buy tape, and this is a reenactment of me holding one of these reels of tape, because this is not a reel of the tape in question. It's 3M 9703 tape, and it's got a useful property in that it's conductive, but only in the Z direction, which is up through the tape, in the thin direction. Now that's really useful, because it means if you lay a bit of tape along here, this stuff, then each of the connections will be passed up through the tape onto whatever you stick on with it. It's double-sided. So if I put some tape along there, stick that down, put some more tape on the LCD and stick the other end of the flexi, we should have connections between the two components. Now this is a reenactment of me holding a piece of this tape, because it's £10, not for the tape reel, but £10 a metre, which means that a reel 30 metres long, which is sort of roughly this size, maybe a bit bigger, is about £300, which is quite expensive. So I haven't bought a reel of that, but what I have bought are these. These are small circles of 3M 9703. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these up into strips. You're actually looking at it, maybe one or two will be enough. So I'm going to cut them up into small strips and then put them along here and the LCD, and then use them to attach the flexi, which I'm going to bend in half, to both the PCB and the LCD. So we'll see if that fixes it. So I've managed to cut the tape into strips about 2mm wide, and I've run some strips down here, and on the back some strips on the PCB. So I'm going to peel off the backing, and then have a go at putting this flexi connector, which I've folded in half, so the connections are on the inside now, so it'll sort of squish over there, over both of those once I've taken the backing off, stick it down, see if it works. Well, this is the first attempt. I've got the flexi on there with some tape, both sides, LCD and PCB. As far as I can tell, the PCB connections are almost perfect, but the LCD, the bend has buckled a bit, and I'm not sure that's lined up properly, but as you can see it doesn't work. So turn it on, I get caps, and turn it off, I still get caps, which isn't right. And if I turn it on and then try toggling the caps, then caps doesn't go on and off, so I'm not sure that's actually a real segment being illuminated there at all. I do get some sort of flickering when I toggle from on to off, but I'm not getting very much at all. That's assuming that my key from another calculator is working, and going from text to basic doesn't do anything either. So I'm surprised how bad it is, really. I expected more segments than that to come up. So I'm going to probably rip the whole thing off and do it again and see if that makes any difference. But at the moment it's not looking very successful. Well, this is the second attempt. It's powered up, but if I turn it on and put it in text mode, you can see 2 pixels appear. If I turn it off, they disappear. If I turn it on, they're not there until I press the text button. Go back to basic, it's away. So I think those 2 pixels might actually be working, but that's as as good as I've got so far. Turn it off, they go away, back on, press text, and they're there. So 2 pixels out of that lot, that's not very good. Don't really know what's going on here. So it does mean that the pixels can be illuminated, but I can't really see why it's not working better. I mean, that's pretty consistent. Off and it's gone, turn it on, basic, nothing, text, it's there, and only when you're in text mode do those pixels come on. So yeah, I mean the alignment is pretty good on this one. It's not perfect, but the only thing I'm concerned about is that the tape, in the data sheet for the tape, it did say that the minimum distance between contacts I think was 0.4 millimeters, and we've got maybe a little bit less than that here, so maybe the tape isn't fine enough in the X and Y directions to actually do this. It may be that this isn't possible with this tape, which is a bit of a shame. Well, I've got a 3rd pixel now going on and off. Let's have a look at the real one here that works. Real one, they're both real ones, and see whether, so if I turn that on, basic, text. So text mode does have, basic is quite a small amount of display, and then in text mode there's a lot more down here, which is where those dots are. That's not, it does look like they could actually be pixels in the correct position. So that's quite interesting. I wonder if I can, so if I go to edit in the text mode, so edit, and they've gone away. If I then fill the screen with, what can I fill the screen with? Let's just fill it with bees. Okay, so if I go to text mode, edit, which is where we are here, and fill with bees. Ah, there we go. Now we can see that there's more pixels actually working, but not a huge number. So we're not too far off, maybe. So there's more working than I thought. Ah, yeah, so you can see that it's scrolling. Yeah, so I don't know what's up. So it's definitely definitely pressure sensitive. So that's part of the problem. So I've got a load of bees on the display at the moment, but yeah, not getting anything like bees there. So yeah, so that those pixels that were working aren't working anymore. So it did look like it was feasible maybe at some point there. Let's turn it on again, basic text, and they've gone away. So it's definitely pressure sensitive, or something sensitive. And there's a few pixels back there. So not good at all really. I don't know whether it's... I think the flexi is okay. The flexi is pretty robust. You can bend it and it still makes contact. This one here I just flexed. I didn't actually crease it, which I did with the first one, which is here. They're quite thin, but they're pretty robust. This one I just sort of flexed like that and then pressed it into position. But so there's something working there. Basic text, so it's not, yeah. Oh well, maybe carry on. Maybe I need thicker tape. I'm only using 2mm. Maybe I need more than that. Although I suppose I do have more finger depth there. That's more like 3mm, isn't it? Let's measure it. No, that's 2mm, so there's no point because there isn't going to be any more conduction. So, yeah, it's not working. Not working anywhere near as well as I thought it would. Even if it wasn't working perfectly, I thought I'd get more than 1 pixel. Okay, we're up to 3 pixels there. 3 or 4. But why? That's the question. So, yeah, there's stuff going on, but it's just not... Yeah, maybe my alignment is out. Maybe it's as simple as that. Although it did look a little bit like we had in text mode. We had, let's go to edit and then fill it with cues. Yeah, so there's... It's not... Those pixels do seem to be in the correct place, but very few columns. All rows for that matter. Yeah, so down the bottom of the screen and it should scroll up. Yeah, so it's scrolling up. Off, on, basic text. Those 2 pixels, they're pretty consistent, aren't they? Here somewhere. It's a shame because I'd like to fix this. Oh well, so this is about my 3rd attempt at attaching the LCD, and the first 2 were more or less total failures. I had about 3 pixels illuminated, and for the 3rd attempt I've changed the way that I cut the tape, and I use scissors rather than a knife, and I think maybe with a knife it's dragging down the edge of the cut and connecting together the cells in the tape. But this, I mean, you can actually see that you've got file on the display there. Well, it's readable. If the whole display was like that, that would probably be usable. I think over here it's actually SIO, but you can see it's varying as I touch it. And I can't remember what the other is. That, not sure what that is. Basic maybe. So I flip between modes. That's basic mode, so that would probably be saying prog mode or run mode. And if we go to text and edit, let's put some A's in there. You can see they're appearing across the top. It'll wrap and go on the next line and down there, so that's a pretty good line. So it's almost working. Part of the problem is that the flexi is so wide that bending it over means that you distort it when you attach to the second connection, because it's flat when you do the first one and then distorts. So I'm wondering about cutting one of these up into, I don't know how many segments, and trying to attach them as separate flexis. It does mean I'm going to have to remove this one. I don't think I can recover this and get it working better. It's just not quite there, but it's recognisable. You've got recognisable words there, so not a total failure, but we're probably at about 30% of what I need. So yeah, onwards.